Good morning, day, I don't know, 13, 14, 12, 13, I don't know. Anyway.
It's June 27th.
Okay, June
28th.
June 28th.
Wednesday.
We are at Wind Cave National Park in South Dakota. And we're going to go on a guided tour of a cave today and a couple of short hikes. But this morning, we decided we would cook bacon and cheese omelets. So do you want to taste it, babe, and see how my omelet tastes? I think it came out perfectly. I was really worried about flipping it over, but it worked great.
Oh, chewy, cheesy.
Ooey gooey.
Mm-hmm.
Is it ooey gooey quesadilla? No.
Ooey gooey, cheesy.
Before Wind Cave actually became a national park, there were several really interesting chapters to the history of this part of the Black Hills. This site was hugely important to dozens of Native American tribes who, at different times, inhabited the area and utilized it for cultural and spiritual practices. Many of the tribes also looked at this area of Wind Cave for their emergence story. These emergence stories vary as they were handed down by oral tradition, but many of them include the cave opening here at Wind Cave. One version of the emergence story goes like this. The cave serves as a passageway to the lodge of the ancients. It was there where the people of the tribe lived, waiting until the earth was ready for them. A trick played by two banished spirits caused a small group of these humans to travel to the earth too early. In punishment for their disobedience, the Creator turned these people into the first bison herd. Later, the second wave of humans emerged out of the cave and were instructed to follow the bison. The next chapter of Wind Cave was when the South Dakota Mining Company bought mining rights in 1889 and hired J.D. McDonald as a manager. McDonald brought along his two sons, Elmer and Alvin, to help him manage the cave. It was soon after that the mining company lost interest in their claim, and then the McDonalds began operating the cave as if it was theirs. McDonald's tried to homestead the land, but really had no basis to do so. After operating the cave for a while, selling samples of rocks that they had pulled, and giving tours to local people, they realized they needed help. They soon went into a partnership with John Stabler in 1892. It was at this time that an ugly battle for ownership began. The McDonalds, Stabler, and even the mining company were all fighting for ownership of the cave and the surrounding land. Because of this such public battle, the U.S. government got wind of the cave and what was going on there. They quickly realized that none of the three actually had any right to the land, so the U.S. government decided to do something with it. One interesting character to arrive from this story was McDonald's son Alvin. Wind Cave gained national attention in part due to the adventurous teenager. Alvin began exploring Wind Cave, carrying a candle and a ball of string to help him find his way back to the entrance. He spent hours among the cave's beautiful formations and kept a journal of his discoveries. He named rooms and passages and drew the first map of the cave. He also gave cave tours as self-appointed chief guide and shared his passion for Wind Cave with many visitors. Unfortunately, on December 15, 1893, he passed away of typhoid fever at the age of 20. His journal, however, has many wonderful entries, this one in particular as follows. Tuesday, April 14th, 1891. Having nothing else to do, I went down to our stone quarry, about 3/4 of a mile below here. I got a load of variegated sandstone of extra quality, but it is not very extra in quantity. In 1891, Alvin reported that he had, quote, given up the idea of finding the end of Wind Cave. In fact, they are still mapping and finding new rooms and passages to this day. On February 7, 1902, a Washington Special noted, some time ago the Secretary of the Interior made a temporary reservation from the sale of a section of land 2 by 3 miles embracing the famous Wind Cave, with a view to the establishment of a national park. It is proposed to ask Congress to set apart as a national park and stock it with deer, buffalo, and other game. President Theodore Roosevelt signed legislation creating Wind Cave a national park on January 9, 1903. It would be more than 13 years before the National Park Service was established. Wind Cave is the 7th oldest national park in the system and the first to protect a cave.
It's more like combination of prairies and
Good morning, Asa. How's it going?
good.
Having a good time? So, a week and a half in, and you're hanging in there?
Yeah.
Real talkative this morning, huh? You're just a jibber jabber of communication. The native people and the settlers of the Great Plains had very conflicting lifestyles. For the Native Americans, the Great Plains harbored abundance for those who saw the landscape for what it was, a land of plenty. Two cultures had different views on how to reap benefits from what the land had to offer. The Lakota lived in harmony with the land as nomadic hunters who followed the great bison herds across the prairie. Their physical and spiritual lives centered on the bison and the sacred Black Hills. Buffalo meat was the mainstay of their diet, and hides were used to make clothing, bags, horse gear, and other things. In contrast, early pioneers viewed the plains with disdain and described it as the Great American Desert. Later, however, European immigrants were lured to the region with the promise of free land under the Homestead Act of 1862. Thousands of pioneers headed west, settled down, and turned the fertile lands into farmlands. They made dwellings from thick prairie sod that insulated them against the wind and snow. In time, 400 million acres of grassland had been converted into America's agricultural breadbasket. The bison herds had vanished, and the Lakota traditional way of life had disappeared. The rolling grasslands conceal an enchanting subterranean maze shaped by water, but named for the wind that blows in and out of the cave entrance. Wind Cave is one of the oldest and longest caves in the world. Cave explorers are still discovering passages, and the cave is still changing, even though much of it is dry. Prairie plants absorb most of the 18 inches of annual precipitation, but some acidic water seeps through the limestone, slowly depositing calcite and creating cave formations. Can you believe out in the middle of nowhere here and there's still lawnmowers going? And
we went to Death Valley, we
we're
wanted to do all these other things, like the racetrack flyer. Yeah.
This photo is about 140 feet above Wind Cave, near the Methodist Church Room, which is along the National Entrance tour route. The Garden of Eden tour is to the right of this picture, past the elevator, and the Fairgrounds tour loop is straight ahead. If early park managers knew what we know today, they would not have placed a visitor center and parking area above the cave. These facilities affect the natural seepage of water into the limestone where the passageways are located. Sometimes the water contains traces of pollutants that can affect the cave's formation, cave life, and groundwater resources. Ready to head into the elevator.
Do you have time or you guys already? I mean, we have start with the
This rock just crops out of the ceiling. Pretty neat. We certainly seem to be going in a lot of caves lately, babe. You know that? Doesn't it seem like... Isn't this kind of familiar?
I feel like the tracks are gonna...
I'm hearing the Pirates of the Caribbean's theme in my head. Yo ho, pirates of the Caribbean. Wind Cave is one of the largest caves in the world. It is also one of the most complex, with interconnected passages at many levels. Yet the surface area above the known cave is only about 1 square mile. Discovered in 1881, Wind Cave became a national park in 1903, the first to preserve a major cave system. It is estimated based on airflow that only 5% of the cave has been discovered. Exploration continues. Oh, this is that boxwork. Oh, cool. So neat. Oi!
You okay?
Yeah, I think my sunglasses took the brunt of it.
Watch your head. She says, watch your head. Watch your head. Hold the railing.
Watch your head. Unlike other caves known for its stalactites and stalagmites, Wind Cave is famous for its boxwork. These delicate formations consist of fins of hard calcite which surround pockets of eroding bedrock. The sample displayed here was salvaged during the renovation of the elevator shaft. In 1893, J.D. and Alvin McDonald traveled to Chicago to display cave specimens at the Columbian Exposition in Chicago. This was another successful attempt to market the cave nationally. Unfortunately, while there, Alvin caught typhoid fever. He died on December 15, 1893, at the age of 20. A visiting mind reader, Professor Paul Alexander Johnston, was invited to the cave in 1893 to find a hat pin hidden in the cave. For the next 3 days, wild accounts from reporter John Moore captivated readers across the country as a befuddled psychic led the party into precarious positions before finally finding the hat pin. One of the ingredients needed for Wind Cave to become a popular tourist spot was widespread publicity, and John Stabler was just the man to prove it. One of his first stunts was to discover a petrified man actually made of plaster of Paris and display him for a small admission fee at the cave.
Cave cover that's very difficult to see, but there is what we call frostwork, which looks like delicate frost crystals growing off the cave. Almost like mini Christmas trees. This is not frost, it's not cold enough. It's actually a mineral called aragonite that looks very similar to frost.
John Stabler knew that as a popular tourist destination, he could make money by promoting the cave. He invited famous people to visit. Governor Lee of South Dakota, presidential candidate William Jennings Bryan were guests. Bryan reported that he was enthusiastic over the beauty of the cave. These visits were advertised in the local newspaper and brought attention to the cave. So there's a 4-hour tour that you go on, that you crawl around and you have to use most of the time. Go up ropes and other things. And you have to fit through small passages. They created this little jig that you can see if you can squeeze through. And if you can, then you can go on the tour. So let's see if we can get Lily to test if she's able to go on the tour. Okay, let's see you go through. Get through there to see.
Where?
Through there. You have to squeeze through that box.
What do you mean?
They said that that's how you tell if you can go on the tour or not. That's the test. Is if you can squeeze through there. Cavers need to be able to squeeze through small places. Try your luck. It says try your luck. Hey, you can do it.
I can go.
All right, you can go on the tour.
I can fit.
To protect themselves from many predators, prairie dogs dig burrows and keep the grass short. Clipping the grass provides a clear view of approaching predators. When a predator comes near, prairie dogs have a series of barks and calls that warn other dogs of the danger. And then, in the foreground, we see the majestic bison standing there, owning his territory for all the world to see. And I think that's Lookout Tower. I think that's where we're going right now. Okay. And go.
That was pretty much all uphill, but now we get to go downhill.
Uh-huh.
Pretty hard, but it's good.
We're at the top of Lookout Mountain. Rangeley Path, I don't know, I can never remember what the name of this trail is. And it looks out all over the valley like in 360 degrees. And there's a tower right here. Let me zoom out. Look at that, that's so cool. We can't go in the tower, but it is a pretty good view. And everybody else is nowhere to be found.
And we got these tomato berries.
But don't eat that. Yeah, don't eat anything. Even if you think you know what it is, don't eat anything. Because you never know. All right, look at that. So here we are, Black Hills of South Dakota. I don't know why I never thought I would ever get to go to places like this. I feel really fortunate. Pretty neat. This morning we went on that cave tour. That was very cool. And then we're going to head on to a National Park Service road. It's a dirt road, but it's well maintained. And it takes you out to other areas of the park that normally people don't get to see. And hopefully we can find that herd of bison. There's supposed to be a herd of 400 bison. We've seen 3, and those are supposed to be the solitary males. The herd has all the females and the calves in it. And we're gonna head off and see if we can find them. But first, this is a short half-mile hike down from the tower. See the tower there in the background? And back to the car. And looks like a pretty well-maintained path. So, but just enjoying the view and enjoying this day immensely. The mixed grass prairie at Wind Cave National Park was a perfect place to reintroduce bison to the wild. The bison's numbers increased rapidly. Unlike the past, when bison could migrate across the Great Plains and where large predators hunted bison, the bison quickly reached and exceeded the carrying capacity of the land base of the park. To manage the number of bison in the park, a roundup is held yearly. Bison are counted and the health of the herd checked. Excess animals are culled from the herd so that they don't overpopulate the park. The carrying capacity is about 300 to 350 animals. During each roundup, the calves are counted. At that time, a determination is made for the following year about the number of yearlings that will be removed. That night at the amphitheater in our campground, there was a ranger talk on the Civilian Conservation Corps, or CCC. Many park buildings, trails, and roads are remnants of the CCC. Created under President Franklin Roosevelt in 1933, the CCC hired young men to work on a variety of public projects during the Great Depression. The workers set up barracks-style housing at Wind Cave. Today, many of these CCC-era buildings house a visitor center and park offices.